And we're live.
Hi everyone, welcome back. We're Nat and Mandy from the Infinite Me. We introduced ourselves yesterday. And so this project, is called the An Infinite Moment, Infinite Minute. Sorry, we're still getting used to
What do we call it? Like, who knows?
Yeah. So the idea behind these is that we sort of touched on yesterday. If you wanted to go back and watch our first live, was just kicking off this project basically. And so we're showing up again today because that's what we're feeling to do in the moment. So so we were just having a quick chat about what we feel like we want to actually even just talk about today, what's kind of presenting for us to talk about. And it was literally just this feeling of the feeling. That's kind of what we were just like, when you just have a feeling to do something, which is, I guess, your intuition, some people might kind of call, is that feeling that comes up from within you. And it was for us, was like, we don't know exactly where this project's going to go, but the feeling for us is just at the moment to show up live every day at this time, like we've said we were going to. And we've had some idea of where we would like to take this project. We've been talking for weeks about all the content we want to talk about and what we could dive into and what's really inspiring, and some really creative ideas around that. And but then right now it's like, what is there to talk about? And it's like, well, the feeling is to just show up and talk right now. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today. So
yeah, it's sort of interesting, isn't it? It's almost like the perfect example of the infinite me speaking through this human form. And it is, I guess, it's spirit at the end of the day. It doesn't have, I remember doing John Demartini's work, and he talked about a quote from Einstein, and I'm going to try and get this right, is spirit without matter is expressionless, and matter without spirit is motionless. So basically they need both of them together. So spirit is great, but it can't actually express itself unless it has form, so human form in this case. And so spirit comes through us and we express ourselves, and that's really why we're here. So I really like that quote. And to me, that's really the ultimate expression of the infinite me. And I guess I feel like we're living that right now in terms of just showing up, following the feeling. I really like the following of the energy as well. It's not just the feeling, but where the energy is actually showing up. So the other day I was, I have other projects that I've been working on for the last few years, and we'll go into this a little bit more in terms of our backstory and how we got to this point in the first place over the coming days or weeks. But it was interesting because it had come back up again, this feeling of, I just want to speak. I want to sit with Mandy and I want to have conversations about this sort of stuff. Because my other projects are to do with having a travel lifestyle and all that sort of stuff, which has been really awesome over the years. I've enjoyed doing it, and lots of people in that space are very conscious, to live a minimalistic life and, give up all your possessions and just travel the world as a nomad is pretty huge. Like, it takes a big leap. So there are a lot of people in that space that are conscious. But to talk on this level that we're talking about now just feels so right. It really does. And so it was that getting back into the travel lifestyle stuff, and Mandy was busy with stuff, and I was just like, I just reached a point the other day, like breaking point, and I was just like, and I think you did too, so you can tell your story too, man. But like, I need to talk about this stuff. I need to get back into this space again, because I feel like I've moved away from this space too much in the last couple of weeks, where we moved from Singapore to Vietnam, and there was all this stuff going on. And I was like, no, I need to come back to this, even if we just plod along every day, just showing up for a couple of minutes or doing something towards this project, then I'm going to feel like I've reconnected with myself again. And that's exactly what's unfolded. And it's just been showing up all over the place. Like Jody has been doing a project called Helps 100, and she's been doing a lot of marketing stuff because that's what it's about. So watching some of that marketing stuff again really reconnected me to your passion and telling stories and, just turning up every day, like showing up every single day. Like, what would happen if you showed up every single day for a year and just talked about the stuff you wanted to talk about? And I was like, let's do it. Let's just do that. So here we are.
Yes, I think I've had a similar experience of what Nat was saying about the kind of a bit of a a wake-up call of sorts, I guess, in terms of, you know, following that feeling that's kind of coming up for you when you don't. Like I you know, had a bit of a stressful week last week, and then I ended up falling over. Like I slipped over and fell completely like backwards, swept off my feet, so thing without a moment's notice thing, and so kind of quite hurt myself at the time. And so just sitting with that, kind of going, wow, that's interesting. What was that's kind of about for me, because that's kind of what I tend to do. It's like, you know, something comes out of the blue is usually not sort of just a, you know, out of nowhere. Yeah, so I was kind of just thinking, yeah, I'm not kind of following this feeling like it's time to kind of make this the priority. That's what's really coming through. It was kind of just a bit of a open your eyes and see what's going on around you type thing, and get back into that space again. So that's where we are. And I guess that's probably part of the reasoning for actually wanting to do this project and connecting with everyone out there, is just like people, you know, we talk to people all the time, especially, you know, with people that have been on the same journey as us. We've been through programs together and, you know, been in different communities together that we chat with and stay connected with all over the world. And the common thing that both Nat and I find is that you can reconnect with someone a couple of years later that you went through, you know, a pretty deep process with, and you find that they're really still stuck in the same place. Like they haven't actually really moved on from a consciousness point of view. Like they're still kind of very caught in a story or the limitation that's still kind of going on. They haven't kind of evolved out of that. And yeah, so we're sort of, that was sort of a bit of the motivation for doing this too, is just like, wow, why do people get so caught up and stuck and can't kind of move on? And we've done that for ourselves. We can see where that's happened for us. Is like sometimes you just outgrow a way of being, but you still try to hold on to it. And it's kind of like, what is that about? And yeah, so that's kind of who I guess we want to start talking to. Why we want to start talking about this is like, how do you embody this? How do you start living this? How do you determine that difference between a feeling and your ego talking? Like that's a very big topic to start delving into, and it's not something you just wake up to overnight. It's definitely a practice. Like it's a everything is a practice in this journey. Like there's nothing that just happens immediately. You might get an insight, but living it is a completely different thing. Yeah. So yeah.
How have you found following the feeling over the years? Do you feel it's a lot clearer now? Like, can you tune into that pretty easily, or does it still depend on what it's getting you to do? Like, is there different levels of that feeling?
I would say it's definitely easier because I've taken the time to feel what it is like in my body. So what it feels like. Yeah, it's definitely been a process of because I would say I definitely have lived most of my life in my head. So it's definitely been very thinking a lot, strategizing, trying to work out things all the time, and just intellectualizing a lot of the spiritual journey too, which I think a lot of people do. So that's this whole difference of living it. So that's I've really been tuning into probably in the last year to 2 years, really tuning into that feeling of what is that feeling. How do you know the difference? What does it actually feel like in your body? Like what does the energy, and so I can sort of see moments where I feel the energy coming through, like a very creative, so I feel like a really creative energy come through, and then I would feel myself pull back from it. And that's when my head would kick in, and I'd start then logistically making up all the reasons why I couldn't do something, or I'd stop myself from following a project, or and then I'd see the outer world kind of match that. So someone might be asking me for some work, but then next thing it kind of falls through. It's like, okay, I can see where I pulled my energy out of that. Like that's what happened with that. So it's kind of, so now it's more about leaning into that energy, because it's not fear, it's that excitement. Actually, they feel very similar in the body. So it's about knowing that discernment between the two, and sometimes you just got to push yourself through that moment as well to know the difference. So it is just a practice. It's definitely it's like riding a bike. You can tell somebody how to ride it, but until they actually get on the bike and they feel the balance and they know what that feels like in their body, you can tell someone till the cows come home about how to ride it, like do this, balance here, put your foot there, pedal faster. Like it doesn't matter until you're actually on it and you see how it feels. yeah, that's the only analogy I can kind of come up with. That it feels like that. It's like it's definitely just a living process, and really being aware of yourself and noticing how you're thinking about something, how you're feeling, noticing when your reaction to something. And I mean, you know, obviously everyone has unconscious moments. So I definitely go down a path and think, oh crap, that wasn't really a feeling. That was definitely ego. So it's definitely, there's no judgment around it either. It's just an awareness and sort of course correcting. Back on track, I would say. Yeah.
I think we got some really juicy stuff there, because maybe tomorrow we'll introduce the concept of qualia, which is such a fascinating concept, and it really is about, you can't truly know something until you have a direct experience for yourself. So that's really what you're talking about there, and it's a topic that's been argued about in science and psychology and so many different areas, you know, the medical field and stuff, for so long, about, does something happen to you physically and I guess spiritually and in your energy when you have an experience of something. So let's leave that topic until tomorrow, because I think that's such a cool topic to talk about, and it's just so interesting. Yeah, for me, definitely over the years, it's definitely got easier. But it gets easier, I feel, because you actually follow it. And so if you keep ignoring it, then that feeling is really hard to tap into. So I guess I've been pretty bold in following it over the years. And, you know, taking those leaps at different times of what it feels like a leap of like, whoa, that's a really full-on one right now. Can I actually follow that? And then just seeing where that goes. And I guess my most recent experience of that was a intuitive consult that I had with a good friend of ours, Gaz, that we'll talk about more about her work too as we go along. And so I had a consult with her, and it had been there in the background about Jodie and I sort of not being 100% on track with each other. You know, we've been together for 8 years. We live, we breathe, we work together. We're traveling the world together, so it's really hard at times to get outside of each other, because oftentimes we can't even speak the language. Like we're here in Vietnam, I can speak about 2 words of Vietnamese. So other than talking to other expats, there's not a lot of people to talk to other than your partner. So that's sort of like, oh, okay. So it meant that we became very insular with each other. And so through that process, and we had been working together on projects and stuff. So to go into this consult with Gaz and for her to really confront me about, should you still be together? And asking me different questions, and me coming to my own conclusions about that is like, oh shit, maybe we're not actually meant to be together anymore. That was really hard to actually even say the words. And that's what she was trying to get me to do throughout this consult, was like, say the words, I don't think we should be together anymore. And that was freaking difficult, because then the whole mind kicks in of like, oh my God, what will I do? I'm in Singapore right now. Will I go back to Australia? Maybe I should go down and see Mandy in Tasmania. Like, look, in a nanosecond, all these things come up, sort of thing. And it's like, how would I finance that? How would we split our finances? What would we do for business? And when she would do that business, would I do that business? I was like, oh my God. So you can see why people don't follow it, because it's like the mind just goes. So when I sort of settled down again, and, you know, I talked to Jodie about it and stuff like that, and we went through a very conscious process of talking about what it was that was going on for us. And we realized it actually wasn't about each other so much. It was more about how our business was structured. And it was like, wow, if I hadn't have had the guts to actually follow that feeling and admit the words to Gaz in the first place, and then talk to Jodie about that, and actually be really confronting with her, knowing that it would probably upset her, and it was already upsetting me, and so we'll both be upset. That's really difficult, you know, to do to someone that you really love. So it's sort of like, holy crap, like there's some big leaps at times that you've got to make in this journey that feel like crazy. And then, but through that process of doing that, it actually revealed itself about what it was really about. And now we're like 100% on track. Like everything's changed around, our whole business changed around, which just feels so much more streamlined. So to enable me to actually have more time for this project as well, which is freaking awesome. And we've just come back together again in such a different space of like, actually rising as two individual people, now coming together to actually help each other and support each other rather than being codependent. But it was that following the feeling. That was a very long story to come back to saying, yeah, it's following the feeling, but you've got to have the guts to follow it as well, so that it does stay really strong with you. Like, you can feel like what you said, man, feel it in your body in different spots, sort of thing. Like, it sits sort of mid, like just under the solar plexus for me, type thing, like, which a lot of people call the gut feeling, I guess. And there's just a knowing, you know, like when I entered that consult with Gaz, I just knew that that's what was going to come up. I didn't want to admit it, and I didn't want to go there, but it was 100% what needed to be spoken about.
Yes.
So
I think that's, you know, we can
feeling
go that into this, into, you know, into the next chat or down the track, but it's that kind of the knowingness is there, and then it's the ego mind that kind of kicks in to stop it. So, but underneath it all, you know, when people really tap into that feeling, when you learn to tap into that feeling, because it's not always there in the beginning, it feels expansive. It might be scary to your ego or your personality, but it feels expansive, and it does. And your soul knows that, like your infinite part of you knows that, like, so it's kind of so that's kind of what we're talking about, I guess. And there's a lot more obviously that can be talked about.
It's like totally tip of the iceberg stuff as we get, you know, sort of in and warmed up with all this material and stuff that we want to talk about, and that will come through. But it's sort of like, that's the feeling I guess we're talking about right now in terms of this project. It's like, it's almost like the last few months since, you know, I first approached Mandy and on a Zoom call and went, how about this? And she went, yeah, that feels really good. Let's do it. It's almost like everything's sort of lined up to enable this to happen right now. So, you know, even setting up our social media accounts and talking about what are we actually even going to be talking about, all those things is all flowed. Like, there's definitely been a creative process of, I'm not feeling that. That might be it. No, let's rename it this way. Like, so that, to me, that's just a creative process. That's not like, it's not the right thing. So there's
even how we got to our name, me, was a process. Like, we've thrown around so many names because they just didn't embody the energy and the feeling, and we had to keep just, okay, well, that's not it, not attached to it yet, just keep exploring. So it is that process too, of not being attached to things and just following that, the energy of where things are going.
So that's what's happening with this project. As Mandy said, we don't know where it's going. We've got no idea. So let's just keep talking every day. Let's have these conversations. Let's introduce you to our backstory and how we came here as well, because I think it's interesting to hear stories, to sort of go, oh, I deal with that. Like, yeah, that was me. Like, or, yeah, you know, I sort of really feel that what you're saying, type thing. So there'll be lots of stories that we're going to tell throughout this process as well. I think that's it for today. I think we've done 18 minutes. So there you go. We've gone over what we said we would do. Infinite 18 minutes. We always do that. That's what I said to Jodie. I said, the struggle is going to be keeping it down to like 5 or 10 minutes. It's just not going to happen. But anyway, there you go. We've already blown it out. But some cool stuff to talk about tomorrow. So let's talk qualia tomorrow. Let's introduce that concept and have a chat about having a direct experience of things and how important that is.
Yes.
All right. Have a fun day, everyone. Be infinite and go play.
Bye.
Bye.